Stay with us for the Expert's Corner. It's the Expert's Corner, where we put an expert in your corner.
Welcome back to Austin's Talk Radio 1370, The Right Choice. You're listening to The Shift Economy with your hosts, Paul Harmon and Ricky Nier. This is the show dedicated to help you discover how to thrive in a 21st century economy. We're back with Lucinda Datras and Tim Levy.
Now, before the break, we were talking to Tim, and one of the questions that you had posed, Paul, was about how oftentimes we focus on the material things when we're thinking about our goals and our dreams. And as we get a little older, a little bit more mature, sometimes we realize what is really important. And so, Lucinda, I know that is one of your passions, really focusing in on what makes a difference. Tell us a little bit about how your work ties in with that.
Right. So when I work with clients, most of my people tend to be 30s or older, and they have really already had that experience of having the material and realizing that it's not all there in the material, and they really are looking for that what's next. And as part of the process I take them through, I really ask them to get emotionally connected to what is important to them. And very often, given the busyness of our society right now, time is a huge component. They want time to relax. They want time to be at peace. They want time to be with family and friends. And one of the things that is just sort of organically happens is that they realize they don't want to take care of as much stuff. One thing that myself and my life partner did is we have chosen not to have ownership. The only thing we own is our cars. We rent a very nice apartment in downtown Austin, and we really kind of live as much off the grid as we possibly can. We don't really own a lot of stuff. We don't have knickknacks here and there. Our time and energy is put into service and into personal development.
What's really interesting, if you don't mind my piping in, is the as we get a little older, we tend to be a little more reflective, is what I'm hearing, and you get a little more passion-driven, et cetera. So just to kind of use a little bit of scripting here, certain things are important, and I think that, the stuff, the material, the money, and all that, you have to have it. I mean,
absolutely.
Because, we can walk out of here, talk about, let's really concentrate on what's really important to us. We're feeling really good. We've got this positive energy. But life has a way of hitting you in the face with a brick, saying, okay, pal, wake up. Now that the ether's worn off, you still got bills to pay.
Right. And so not necessarily being concerned with the material doesn't mean that we aren't concerned with having a nice income.
Well, exactly. The only thing I'm saying is it's essential. There's the essential, and then there's the important.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about, and what you helped me with, is
a
essential.
great way of putting this, which I really like, which is it's kind of money is like blood.
Yes.
Right? You need blood to live,
yes,
but you don't live for blood.
Good point.
Have you been watching that True Blood show?
I haven't yet, but maybe I should pick up an episode or two.
No, don't bother.
But this ties right in with what Tim is saying. Once we move past that place where we have enough financial security to take care of our basic necessities, and then we have a purpose, and then we have an abundance of money, that's when we get to move into that service place. That's when we really get to fulfill higher purposes and higher callings and really meet the needs of community and society at large, which I think is probably our highest calling and the things that really lead to our highest satisfaction as life is when, we don't have to concern ourselves with our own stability any longer. We're out there helping others do the same thing.
And I was going to say, one of the things that I noticed at the Positive Energy Summit the first time Tim came to Austin, I was honored to just be a visitor and actually I was the visitor, but I watched. I was also the host, but I was actually able to sit back and watch the folks create their own perspective and create an enhanced awareness. And it was quite intriguing for me because, whenever I have an event like that or have hosted an event in the past, I always, I have a strong desire for people to have a takeaway, something that they take away that will last and that will, be a residual. And I watched people walking out of the room clutching their 11 by 17 papers, and and some actually sneaking a handful of candy on the way out as well. So, but that awareness and perspective, the true awareness, true perspective, is just a phenomenal takeaway, Tim.
Exactly. Lucinda, why don't you share with everyone, like for instance, what you did with me yesterday, which was taking me through your process of celebrations. Because that hits the nail right on the head.
Sure. Well, I like to start all of my sessions with my clients, just talking about what has gone well for them throughout the week that we've been apart, across the board. So I want to know what's gone well for them in their health and wellness, in their finances, in their careers, with their recreation and their fun. That is our foundation for taking the next step. When they feel really grounded in their own power and in positivity, then they are more empowered to make those decisions about their next goals and their next steps. But going back a little bit to what we were just talking about, as far as being grounded in the real world, I think there is a danger sometimes in the positivity community that it can get too far outside of reality. And we are not grounded in what's real. And so I often think of creating a life that it's just this amazing amalgamation of both, that we're super positive and we wear our rose-colored glasses, but that we understand that we have to do that in this world, in this society. And there are some rules that we need to look at. Not that we're not going to push the envelope or push the edges of those rules, but there are certainly some boxes we need to check off. And that's, I think, what you're talking about with the fun. There are some boxes we need to check off. There are some things that we need to have in place to ensure that we meet our obligations when we're living in this world, in this society.
Exactly, because what ends up happening is that when we start wrapping ourselves in this positive cocoon,
yes,
we start thinking, oh, everything's going to be just wonderful, the laws of attraction, I'm going to attract it, I'm going to cross the street, there's not going to be any traffic, and bam, I get run over by a truck.
Exactly.
And you got to be real careful. There's a fine line. So you do have to acknowledge the landscape.
Yes.
But in the same token, and this is what the real takeaway that I got from working with you, Lucinda. I mean, I came into you yesterday with my tail between my legs, like, well, there's a couple of things I didn't do right. And sure enough, I walked out with a little spring in my step, and you pointed out all the progress that I'd actually made. Right. And I walked out saying, you know what? You're right. I actually did okay.
Well, and one of the things we're talking about a lot of this is programming. Exactly. We have been since the age of 5 when we were children. We've programmed, and society programs, the economy programs, everything we do is programming, and so we have all this programming in us. And one of the things that I really have come to one endearing quality of the Life Summit process with my good friend Tim is that it's really a whole lot like, if you can imagine a computer, for example. It goes on and on and on, and you download this, you download that, you program this, you add this software, you delete that software, you refresh the hard drive, you do all these things, and consistently it's got all this stuff in it. And the best thing you can do with that computer is to hit Control-Alt, Delete, and reboot. And when you reboot that computer, when it pulls back up again, it reconforms to its original matrix, if you will. And the Life Summit process helps you do that by segregating the right brain, left brain, and just really giving you an absolute clarity. So when you reprogram, when you're re-engaging yourself, you have this awesome and incredible clarity about what you have been about your whole life. Because not everything that we've all been through is bad. 90% of, most of it is good, and it all comes together when you reboot.
Well,
and I would say that none of it's bad.
Thank you. Yes.
If we stand back and look
positive energy, absolutely,
and the outside from observer, that we can take every single one of those circumstances and use them as a springboard to the next greatest version of ourselves.
Well, it's kind of like what we've been talking about in the past. That do we consider good and bad experiences both an asset? And most people, I think you're going to find 99.9% of the population, they'll say, my God, if I think about it, the bad experiences are probably my largest asset because I learned from those. But yet they're the most painful, and some people are destined to continue those bad experiences because they don't learn from it.
And it can often take time. There's nothing wrong with feeling hurt and angry and upset and and going through the hard time of the bad experience, it can take time to get to the other side where we can actually look back in without all the emotional charge and say, that really, this really is the place of the silver lining.
That's a good point. So give yourself permission.
Yes, give yourself permission to feel the bad, because there are negative emotions. That's part of being human too. The full spectrum.
I have to say, I'm really excited about today and about Tim and Lucinda, about you guys being here, because one of the most common types of situations that I'm running across right now with I guess we termed it accidental entrepreneurs or whatever, is people who have left the workforce either voluntarily or involuntarily. Even if it's involuntary, they say, this was the best thing that happened to me because now I get a chance to reinvent myself. There's so many people that are looking to reinvent themselves. Yes. And thank God for people like you and Tim who are there with processes and systems to help people figure that part out.
Because it's not easy. Being an entrepreneur is not easy.
It may not feel like the best thing initially,
in the moment,
but in the long run, it definitely does.
And it can be a hard road.
Yeah,
exactly. I'm gonna stir things up. Steve, you mentioned something about programming, and I immediately wrote that down. I'm going to throw this question out to you two experts here.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. We're gonna start a free for all. Would you say that between everything that we're talking about, what this is really about now is about deprogramming people?
I would not. I would disagree. But you go ahead and say, Lucinda, I don't want to jump in on your answer here.
Well, you already gave us yours.
And
it was just a question.
I don't think it's about deprogramming because that makes an assumption that the programming was wrong to begin with.
Yeah.
And I don't believe that the programming was wrong to believe.
I would love to use this word, integration.
Yeah.
For me, when I work with people, and I work with them one-on-one, and I take them over the course of 5, 10, 15 hours, and we really work this stuff absolutely through and out. And there's only one perspective I can ultimately, having had these experiences, come to, which is that, in fact, what you judge as good or bad experiences, what you judge as programming, which you may feel like you have to get rid of, are in fact all perfect steps in getting you to where you are now, and all necessary. The key is to become conscious of them and figure out how to sort of assimilate them. It's almost like if you were sort of, let's say you were doing a job and you spent 10 years stacking the shelves at Safeway and you're like, oh man, I've got to get out of that. It gives you an extraordinary skill set to move on from to pursue your dream, whatever that is, even if that's training horses and feels unrelated. Maybe you're the perfect new Safeway technology drives horse trainer. And I think your programming is part of that. You have this amazing learning. Obviously, our society is really strong on what I call the left brain part of learning. That's sort of masculine, take a problem, make it into, break it down, make it into steps. We're not that awesome, it seems, on the right brain, creativity, innovation stuff. And when you start to actually, integrate all those things together, you start coming up with amazing leaps and very happy people.
Right.
Okay, before we take another quick short commercial break, I want to stir things up a little bit further, and just for folks to loan over, for folks to mull over. What I'm going to throw out there is, Lucinda, you made a good point that saying that to say deprogramming would imply that it was wrong to begin with. On the other hand, it could also mean that maybe it was right for its time, but to continue on, it's going to be wrong today, is my contention. Now,
it's time for an upgrade.
It is time for an upgrade. But the problem is we get stuck in the old way, which, in my opinion, does require a little deprogramming. But hold that thought. I'm kind of curious to hear what other people think about this. If you want to call in, it's 390-1370. Please call in with your thoughts. If not, then we'll continue on with our opinion. It's time for another quick short commercial break. This is Austin Talk 1370, The Right Choice. You're listening to The Shift Economy. If you'd like more information about the Shift Economy or our panel of experts, you can visit us at theshifteconomy.com. We've been talking to Tim Levy and Lucinda Dotras. We'll be back right after the break.